Hello everyone, welcome to Narayana online classes. We are going to be practicing some basic questions from definite integration, especially topics, questions from comparison of integration as well as estimation of di as well as limit of a sum. Alright, okay, let's start. If I1 is integral 0 to 1 2 raised to x square dx, I2 is 0 to 1 2 raised to x cube dx, I3 is 1 to 2 2 raised to x square dx, and I4 is 1 to 2 2 raised to x cube dx. Alright, we need to now compare these four integrals. Whenever you find questions like this, start with the fact that we know that if fx greater than or equal to gx in any interval a comma b, in any interval a comma b, then integral a to b fx dx is greater than or equal to integral a to b gx dx, correct? Which means whenever you are trying to compare integrals, if the limits are same, then you ask whether the value of the integral is different, and if the limits are different, then between those separate intervals you ask whether the value of the integrand itself, whether the function there is a difference between those. Alright. So in this case, let us first look at 0 to 1 x square and x cube. Now why am I ignoring the 2? Because we know that another thing also, 2 raised to a is greater than 2 raised to b if a is greater than b. Again, because 2 raised to x is an increasing function. So 2 raised to is greater than 2 raised to b if a is greater than b. So comparing using these two, we can just conclude that we only have to compare the powers within those given limits, right? So now couple of observations. Within 0 to 1, is x square bigger or x cube bigger? Now often students get confused here, because we normally think that cube should be bigger than square, but when the number is a fraction, like in this 0 to 1, think of 0.5. Okay, 0.5 square is 0.25. Square that, it will be further smaller, or think of 0.1, that is a better example. 0.1 square will be 0.01, cube will be 0.001, and so on, right? So whenever a number is between 0 to 1, cube is smaller than the square. So we will say that in 0 to 1, x cube is less than x square, and then the other interval that we have is 1 to 2, once again x square and x cube, and in 1 to 2 x cube is greater than x square, right? Which means when we integrate it, this integral will be greater than this one, and x square integral will be greater than x cube in those intervals. Which means now we just need to establish a relationship between these two, x square in 0 to 1 and x cube in 1 to 2. And we will say x square in 0 to 1 is less than x square in 1 to 2, right? So now establish the entire relationship. Let us see which will be the highest. Highest will be x cube in 1 to 2. So 2 raised to x cube. Let us directly put integral only, which means integral in the interval 1 to 2, 2 raised to x cube dx is greater than, right, because in 1 to 2 x cube is highest, then 1 to 2 x square, integral 1 to 2 2 raised to x square dx, which is greater than, now we said 1 to 2 x square is greater than 0 to 1 x square. So it is greater than integral 0 to 1 2 raised to x square dx, which you come here, x square in 1 to 0 to 1 is greater than x cube in 0 to 1. So it is greater than integral 0 to 1 2 raised to x cube dx, correct? So now you have established a descending order among these given integrals, right? So what can we conclude? This means 0 to 1 2 raised to x cube is I4. So I4 is greater than 1 to 2 2 raised to x, sorry, did I say 0 to 1 2 raised to x cube? I am sorry about that. 1 to 2 2 raised to x cube. 1 to 2 2 raised to x cube is I4. Then 1 to 2 2 raised to x square is I3, which is greater than 0 to 1 2 raised to x square, which is I1, which is greater than 0 to 1 2 raised to x cube, which is I2. So that is the relationship that we have established. Then now just check the options. I1 is greater than I2. That's true. That's true. So we should know this should be answer. Just verify. I2 is less than I1. I2 is greater than I1. That is false. I3 is greater than I4. False. I1 is greater than I3. False. Which means option 1 is correct. Got it? Okay. Let us proceed then. I1 is integral 0 to pi by 4 2 raised to sin x dx. I2 is integral 0 to pi by 4 2 raised to cos x dx. Okay, so as you can see once again we will repeat that. We know that 2 raised to a is greater than 2 raised to b if a is greater than b, right? This is because 2 raised to x is an increasing function. So again, since the limits are same, we should just compare the powers. Also, in 0 to pi by 4, which one is bigger? Think about sin 0 and cos 0. Clearly cos 0 is 1, which is bigger, and sin pi by 4, con pi by 4 are actually equal. So cos will reduce, sin will increase, and they will meet at pi by 4. So I will say, but pi by 4 the point is not included, right? This is an open interval, so the end point is not included, which means we can say strictly cos x is greater than sin x. No equal to, because this is a strict inequality, which means we can conclude that 2 raised to cos x is greater than 2 raised to sin x in 0 to pi by 4, which means integral 0 to pi by 4 2 raised to cos x dx is greater than integral 0 to pi by 4 2 raised to sin x dx. Correct? So I2 is greater than I1. Correct? I2 is greater than I1. Got it? Okay, let us proceed then. I1 is 0 to 1 root 1 plus x cube dx. Then which of these things can we conclude? Now usually these kind of questions, the options can give us some hint, but a lot of guesswork is required. So then you need to think about this. Integral 0 to 1. Which function should I have here so that the integral gives us 1? Now think, integral 0 to 1, which function should I have here? I should get 1. With a little bit of practice you will realize that I just need 1. Integral of 1 dx from 0 to 1 is 1 minus 0, which is 1. Correct? So now then check whether this should work, because now try to establish some inequality between the two. Right? So with this observation, we will say, I want to compare this with 1, right? So we will say, we know that root 1 plus x cube is greater than 1 when x belongs to 0 to 1. Within those intervals, x is a positive quantity, which means x cube will also be positive, which means some 1 plus x cube will be greater than 1. So the square root will also be greater than 1. With all that, we can immediately say, which means integral root 1 plus x cube 0 to 1 dx is greater than integral 0 to 1 dx. Right? But this right hand part is what? 1 x 0 to 1, which is 1. 1 into 1 minus 0, which is 1. Right? So we just conclude that integral 0 to 1 cube root of 1 plus x cube dx greater than 1. Correct? For the other options, now we know this is only one answer correct, therefore this has to be correct. For the other options, again, like I said, a lot of guesswork is required. Then you will have to ask that this should be less than which quantity, and then try and figure out. But anyways, we don't have less than quantities here. This is definitely false, and those two are greater than root 5 by 2 itself. Okay, so you will have to guess a couple of functions to try and match with this if you want to check. Alright, so let us proceed. Okay, integral 0 to 2 pi dx upon 5 plus 4 cos x lies between k and L, then what are the values of k and L? Okay. So, when such questions are asked, directly try to think the integrand, the inside the integral, whatever the function is there, does that have an upper limit or lower limit? So, since this is a reciprocal, you go to the denominator directly. Does the denominator have a lower limit and upper limit? Yes. Why? Because of the cos term. So, the cos term is the only thing that is variable here. Start there. I will just say, we know that cos x lies between minus 1 and 1, which means 5 plus 4 cos x lies between which values? 5 minus 4 and 5 plus 4, correct? 5 minus 4 is less than or equal to 5 plus 4, correct? Which means 5 plus 4 cos x lies between, this is 1 and this is 9. Now, if this number, if this function lies between 1 to 9, 1 upon this function, now always remember, when you are dealing with entirely positive quantities or entirely negative quantities, when you take reciprocal, the signs should change. So, then this will be 1 and 1 by 9, which means we will say my fx is greater than or equal to 1 by 9 and 1, which means integral fx dx, which is integral dx by 5 plus 4 cos x is less than or greater than or equal to and less than or equal to. Let us remove this. Integral dx by 5 minus 4 and integral dx by 5 plus 4, right? And what will be integral dx by 5 minus 4? Integral 1 only. Wait, I made a mistake. Okay, I made a mistake. Let us correct that. 5 minus 4 in the left side, 5 plus 4 on the left side, 5 minus 4 on the right side. Correct, because bigger denominator means smaller the value. Okay, so putting all this together, which means integral 0 to 2 pi 1 by 9 dx is less than or equal to integral. We already know that this entire whatever we are writing here, it is I, which is less than or equal to integral 0 to 2 pi 1 dx. Now, just 1 by 9 x from 0 to 2 pi less than or equal to I less than or equal to integral, integral x from 0 to 2 pi, right? This is simply 2 pi by 9 less than or equal to I, which is less than or equal to 2 pi. So, I lies between 2 pi by 9 and 2 pi. Option 4. Got it? Okay, let us proceed. If I1 is integral 0 to pi by 2 cos of sin x dx, I2 is 0 to pi by 2 sin of cos x dx, and I3 is 0 to pi by 2 cos x dx, then what is the relationship between the three? Now, this is actually a beautiful question, because you can usually we don't encounter cos of sin and sin of cos, right? Very confusing. It can be solved in one step if we know the graphs. Okay, now we don't know the graphs, so let us figure it out. We are going to look at only the first quadrant. So 0 to pi by 2, let us take this as 1, right, because upper limit of cos and sin are 1. Then ask cos of sin x when x is 0. Okay, well, let me write it as the first function is cos of sin x, and let us figure it out. Now, when x is 0, this becomes cos of 0, cos 0 is 1, it will start here. Then when x is pi by 2, it becomes cos of, what is sin pi by 2? 1, cos 1. Now, this is where students get confused. When they say cos 1, is it cos 1 degrees? No, it is cos 1 radian. Okay, we will say at x equal to pi by 2, this function is equal to cos 1, which is cos of 1 radian, which is, now how much is, now we need an approximate value because I want to show it here. So cos 1 radian, 1 radian is approximately 57 degrees, 57 point something. So we will go with the approximate value because we just need a representation. So which is approximately cos 57 degrees, and then I am going to make a bigger approximation, make it cos 60 degrees, right? Sort of, we will keep in mind that not equal but somewhere near. Now cos 60 degrees is half, so somewhere near half, and 57 degrees is small, slightly smaller than 60, therefore this will be slightly bigger than half, slightly above half. So I am going to mark this as cos 1. Okay. So, and we know it should be smoothly reducing, right. Then next graph, second is sine of cos x. Now once again, at x equal to 0, cos 0 is 1, we need sine 1, right. So at x equal to 0, this becomes sine 1, which is sine 1 radian, which is approximately equal to sine of 57 degrees, which is approximately equal to sine 60 degrees, which is equal to root 3 by 2, right, and root 3 by 2 is about 0.8 something. So why are we making that approximation? Because we know it will be slightly above this, somewhere here probably. So this will be sine 1, okay, fine. And then at x equal to pi by 2, at x equal to pi by 2, cos pi by 2 is 0, sine 0 is 0. So it will come here, which means the second graph will go up to this point, right. Okay, up to this point is fine. Third graph is cos x, nice and easy cos x, you know how to deal with it. Cos x is, we know it goes from 1 to 0, between 0 to pi by 2. So like this. So just to be clear, the third function is cos x. Okay, the graphs are in front of you. If you want, let us just quickly label them. This is cos of sin x. This one is sine of cos x. And the green one is cos x itself, cos x. Clearly the area under the first graph is highest and area under sine of cos x, the second one is lowest. So your establishment, your relationship should be I1 is greater than I3 is greater than I2. Where do we have that? I1 is greater than I3 is greater than I2, it's first option itself. Done, right? All of this can actually be done mentally. If right now I am writing for you to understand, but all of this can be done mentally. This graph has all the information you need. All right? Okay, fine. Let us proceed. If I1 is integral 0 to 1, 1 by mod x dx, and I2 is integral 0 to 1, 1 upon root 1 plus x square. Now we need to just compare between these two. Now for comparing, start with the observation that if 1 was not here, root of x square becomes mod x, right? Okay, fine. So start with the observation that we know that root 1 plus x square is greater than root x square, which is mod x, right? Which means 1 by root 1 plus x square must be less than 1 by mod x. As I said, both sides are positive, therefore when you take reciprocals, the sign will reverse. And now you can just integrate, which means integral 0 to 1, 1 by root 1 plus x square dx is less than integral 0 to 1, 1 by mod x dx, right? So clearly I2 is less than I1, I2 is less than I1. Got it? Alright, let us proceed then. let fx be a continuous and positive in x belongs to a to b. Gx is continuous for x in the interval a to b, and integral a to b mod gx dx is greater than in mod of integral a to b gx dx. Then the value of first statement is the value of integral a to b fx gx dx can be 0, and second statement says equation gx has at least one root in x belongs to a to b. Okay. So, in order to make sense of this, first ask yourself, you must have studied this property. We know that integral between any interval mod fx dx is greater than or equal to integral a to b with a mod fx dx, correct, greater than or equal to. Then ask, when is equality valid? Equality is valid whenever fx doesn't change sign at all, okay, which means whenever fx is completely positive or completely negative. Because think about this, if fx is completely positive, then we know integral mod fx dx, fx is completely positive, we can ignore the mod. Similarly, this mod also can be ignored because fx is completely positive. Therefore, equality is valid. On the other side, if fx is completely negative, then because of mod I can put a minus outside. Similarly, for this mod also, because this also becomes negative, this mod also can be removed and put a minus outside. When there is minus on both sides, we know that once again integral a to b mod fx dx will be equal. We are thinking of equality, not inequality. They will be equal because of both minus sides, they will get cancelled. So, only when fx changes sign between a to b can we say the inequality is valid, right. So, here integral a to b mod fx dx, or rather we can just say is equal to mod integral a to b fx dx when fx is completely positive or completely negative in your interval a to b, right. So, if equality is valid when everything is completely positive, completely negative, that means the inequality should be valid when the opposite is happening, right, which means integral a to b mod fx dx is greater than mod integral a to b fx dx only when fx changes sign in a to b, right. Now, if you want to, we will do a visual representation at the end, alright. First understand this. So, only when fx changes sign in a to b. Now, in this case here instead of fx we have gx, but from statement 1 itself, from the given statement itself we can say that gx is changing sign, right. Then they are saying the value of integral to be fx gx can be 0. Now, fx is strictly positive, but gx changes sign, which means the product will also change sign, which means if the product is changing sign, the integral can actually be 0, right, which means we will say fx gx also changes sign. Just to be clear, we are talking about fx gx here. Here fx is positive and gx changes sign. Just to be clear, sign implies fx gx also changes sign. Now, we do not know how much, to what extent they change sign, to what is it in the beginning, in the end, none of that we know, but that is why they are saying can be 0. But if this function is changing its sign, its integral can be 0, like think of sin x. changes sign between 0 to pi, right? So its integral is 0, right? So we will say integral a to b fx gx dx can be 0. And then when you read statement 2, equation gx equal to 0 has at least one root in x belongs to a to b, which is basically saying that gx is changing sign, correct? Which means, and statement 2 is also correct, right? So statement 1 is correct, statement 2 is correct, and this is just another way of saying that gx is changing sign. Therefore, statement 2 correctly explains statement 1, right? So, and statement 2 implies statement 1. Therefore, option 1 is correct. This one. Statement 2 is a correct explanation of statement 1. Got it? Okay. Now, just in case some of you were not able to visualize this, think about it like this. If your fx goes a little bit like this, or entirely like this, or entirely like this, then notice that when we integrate fx from, let us say, a to b, some negative area will get cancelled. Like, think about it like this, that this is integral fx dx, and for the same integral mod fx dx will go like this. So, do you realize in mod there is that extra interval, extra area that is being added, whereas in this much area will get subtracted. These two will cancel each other, whereas here they are getting added, which is why this will always be larger. But that is only happening because fx is changing sign. Whereas on the other hand, actually I put an integral here, okay, here also, and here if fx is entirely positive between a to b, then clearly if I take its mod also I am going to get the same function. Or if fx is negative, then once again if you take its mod, the function will then go like this and area will be the same, which is why the actual area, when you put mod, you see there are mod on both sides. So if it's entirely negative, mod on both sides will take care of the fact that finally you get equal value. Okay. So everything is taken care of from this. Alright? Okay. Let's go to the next one. Assertion: integral 0 to pi by 2 sin x by x dx is less than pi by 2. Reason: limit x tends to 0, sin x by x is 1. Okay. So first of all, I hope you know that statement 2 is definitely true. Right? We know from limits the statement 2 is definitely true. Then we have to check whether reason actually explains assertion, and check whether assertion is also true or not. So now, like I said in previous questions, whenever you have a number here, you guess what should we have on here, what number, what function should be integrated in this interval to get this answer. Can you figure it out? Because we have pi by 2 here, and the limits are going from 0 to pi by 2, which means if I take my function as 1, integral 1 dx, I will get exactly pi by 2. So now basically we need to compare sin x by x with 1. So think about it. We know that sin x by x dash 1 in 0 to pi by 2. Now what should I put here? Less than or more than or equal to? Definitely it is not equal to. Should it be less than or more than? Now for this, if you know it, great. If you don't know it, keep in mind that sin x by x is actually always less than 1. Always. Whenever x is positive, sorry, I should be careful. Whenever x is positive, sin of x by x is actually less than 1. Why is that the case? Because just look at the graphs. If you look at the graphs, this is 0, pi, 2 pi, right? And this is the graph of y equal to x. Okay, that's badly drawn. let me correct that. That's the graph of y equal to x. It will go like this, in a way that they will sort of merge at origin, but everywhere else sin x will be less than x. Okay, this is y equal to x, this is y equal to sin x. So keep this graph in mind, it will be very helpful. So for us, we know that we'll directly use it as a property, that sin x by x is always less than x. Okay, so then going forward, we can claim that, which means integral 0 to pi by 2 sin x by x is less than integral 0 to pi by 2 1 dx. Okay, there should be a dx here, which means this whole thing is your LHS, integral 0 to pi by 2 sin x dx upon x is less than, what is this? This is simply pi by 2 minus 0, right? I have done the integral assuming you understand. This is pi by 2, which means your assertion is definitely correct. And reason is also correct, but does the reason explain assertion? No, because we actually did not use this property. This works only because of the inequality, which is not given in the reason, right? But reason does not imply assertion, which means statement 1 is true, statement 2 is true, but statement 2 is not a correct explanation of statement 1. Option 2 is correct. Alright? Okay, shall we proceed? Let's do that. Limit n tends to infinity 1 by n plus 1 plus 1 by n plus 2 up to 1 by 6n. Alright? Now, whenever you see such questions and if you get confused, start with recalling what is the property of limit as a sum, sorry, integral as a summation of, as a limit of a sum. So just recall the original property. Start with, we know that integral 0 to k fx dx can be written as limit n tends to infinity 1 by n summation r equal to 1 to kn f of r by n. Now just keep this as a reference, and with I am just adding a rider here, just also summation r equal to 0 to n minus 1. This is just for your reference. It doesn't always have to be 1 to n, k into n minus 1. Okay, just for your reference. Anyway, so come back here. Then once you have this, you write the entire sum in summation form. First write it in summation form, then you try to fit everything in this. Okay, so here, let us say here L equal to limit n tends to infinity summation 1 by, can I write it as n plus r, where r goes from 1, you see r is starting from 1, n plus 1, n plus 2 and so on. Up to which point should I take r? If there is 6n here, this must be n plus 5n. So up to 5n. So limit n tends to infinity 1 to 5n summation n plus r. Now we have left that here. Now you try to match everything with this, because eventually I want to integrate. Then you should realize first of all that 5 is here, which means we are going to integrate from 0 to 5. Then try to get 1 by n outside, then try to get r by n inside. They will both happen simultaneously when we do this, which is limit n tends to infinity, bring 1 by n outside, summation r equal to 1 to 5n, 1 by 1 plus r by n. Correct? Just check whether that's correct or not. So simply what we have done is, we have taken an n outside because we need it, and then but as soon as you take an n outside, this becomes 1, this becomes r by n, which is also what you wanted, because f of r by n. And so just in your mind you do this. This is 1 by 1 plus x, because people get confused. From that, how do we write f of x? You write in, just replace r by n with x, and then we write this is equal to integral 0 to 5. Why 5? Because of this 5 and 5. Then f of x, whatever we have written here, 1 by 1 plus x dx. That will be your answer. and that integral you can do definitely. That should be your answer. Okay. So that is equal to log 1 plus x from 0 to 5, correct? Because you know how to integrate 1 by 1 plus x. Now substitute. This is log 1 plus 5, 6 minus log 1, but log 1 is 0. This part is 0, the log 6 is your answer. Yes, got it? Okay, let us proceed then. Right, now let us try to follow the same procedure here. We know that integral 0 to kn, sorry, not kn, integral 0 to k fx dx is limit n tends to infinity 1 by n summation r equal to 1 to kn, or sometimes 0 to kn minus 1, right? F of r by n. Okay, so that's our property. Now we will try to fit this in this form. So here L equal to limit n tends to infinity. First, like I said, first write everything in summation form. So summation 1 by na plus r, correct? Because na plus 1, na plus 2, na plus 3, up to what is that n, we will come to that. But remember, there is no r here, which means I will go with r equal to 0 to, now this will be confusing. What should be the last value of r, so that I should get nb? Think na plus what gives me nb? We just mentally work it out. Na plus, let us say not x, na plus t gives me nb, therefore t is nb minus na, correct? We will just write n into b minus a. Yes, and that it almost fits into this, except that there is this r equal to 0 term that we don't want. So we will take that r equals 0 term outside. We will say it is 1 by na, that just that one term we are taking it outside, and then limit, sorry, plus one term taken outside, plus limit n tends to infinity summation r equal to 1 to n times b minus a 1 by na plus r, right? And don't do this, because if limit n tends to infinity is in this, then n is n to infinity here also. So remove this, limit n tends to infinity this part plus the rest of it. Now this we will integrate, but what of this? This, do you realize n is going to infinity, which means this whole thing will just go to 0. So actually we could have just ignored it. Don't ignore it. This is still the beginning of your concepts. So in the beginning, don't ignore things. Later with practice, you can start ignoring them. So we know this whole thing becomes 0. So now only focus on this. Let me write this a bit closer, avoid confusion. Okay. So this whole thing then becomes equal to 0 plus integral. Not yet, because for integral I need a 1 by n outside. So remove that. This is limit n tends to infinity 1 by n, we have taken it outside. Rest of it becomes summation 1 by a plus, I have taken n outside, no? What is remaining? A plus r by n. And 1 to n into b minus a, correct? Now match that with this. We have 1 by n here, 1 to k n, clearly k is b minus a, and f of r by n is there. In case anybody gets confused, you in bracket mentally you write it as 1 by a plus x. Just that is not a part of the problem, but that will help you if you are getting confused here. Okay, and then directly we will write this is equal to integral 0 to k, so 0 to b minus a fx this becomes fx. 1 by a plus x dx. What did we do here? Just replaced r by n with x. That's it. So that's your integral. Now that we need to integrate. But what is integral 1 by a plus x? I hope you recall this. Integral 1 by a plus x would be log of a plus x, which is log of a plus x going from 0 to b minus a. Now substitute log of a plus b minus a minus log of a plus 0. So this is simply log b minus log a, which is log of b by a. Correct? Option 1. Done? Okay, then let us proceed. Limit n tends to infinity 1 by n square summation 1 to n r e raised to r by n. Okay, so already it is sort of given in a limit form. We know that integral 0 to k fx dx is limit n tends to infinity 1 by n summation r equal to 1 to k n f of r by n. Okay, so keep this in mind while doing that. Here L equal to limit n tends to infinity 1 by n square summation 1 to n r e raised to r by n. So now in order to convert this into this form, I need a 1 by n here, whereas there is 1 by n square. To take an n inside, that is good for us if you take an n inside, because there is only r here, that will become r by n, right. So this is limit n tends to infinity 1 by n summation 1 to n r by n e raised to r by n. Okay, and then mentally you write this is, ignore this part, only this, mentally this becomes x e raised to x, just replacing r by n with x, right. So finally this is limit n tends to, in fact no more limits, you have you can now write it in integral form, which is integral 1 to n only, so 0 to 1 here, k is equal to 1, fx dx, this then is your fx, x e raised to x dx. Now you have done this before in indefinite integral, so apply uv rule, put this as u, put this as v, so u integral v, so x e raised to x minus integral of derivative of u, which is x, integral e raised to x is e raised to x only, dx, correct. So just derivative of x is 1 here, so 1 and the rest of it, so x e raised to x minus e raised to x plus c, instead of plus c we will put 0 to 1, right. This also we should have put 0 to 1. So substitute now, that becomes 1 e raised to 1 minus e raised to 1 minus 0 e raised to 0 minus e raised to 0. Now you will realize this is e minus e, cancel, 0 again goes away. So minus of what is this? Minus of e raised to 0, which is just 1, right. So 1, which is there, option number 2, correct, got it. All right, let us proceed then. Limit n tends to infinity, this whole summation once again, let us do that. We know that integral 0 to k fx dx is limit n tends to infinity, no integral there, limit n tends to infinity 1 by n summation r goes from 1 to k n f of r by n, right. So here the limit or the sum L is equal to limit n tends to infinity, like I said, first write this in summation form, first make sure you write it in summation form. So 1 by, I can say n plus r, so r goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right, but summation, summation 1 by n plus r. Now r starts from 0, then we get n there. What is the last term of r? 2n, right? Don't say 3n, 2n, because n plus 2n will give you 3n. Be very careful about that. Now once again, it doesn't exactly match our form because r equal to 0 is there extra. So we will separate it out. Limit n tends to infinity 1 by, when r equal to 0, only the first term we are taking it out, plus the rest of it. Plus limit n tends to infinity summation. Now r goes from 1 to 2n, 1 by n plus r. And once again you will realize that limit n tends to infinity 1 by n, this will be 0. Are you beginning to see a pattern here? That sometimes if you are starting from r equal to 0 also, that is not a problem, because often, not always, so be careful, but sometimes that extra term can simply be put to 0. So if you want to take a shortcut, just think first, the first term, is it going to 0 as n tends to infinity? And yes, if yes, then you can just ignore this and directly go ahead with the integral. But in the beginning, at least while practicing, separate it out, think about it, and then only proceed. So we have limit n tends to infinity. Now to match it here, I need a 1 by n outside. So just take a 1 by n outside, summation 1 to 2n, 1 by, you see this becomes 1 by 1 plus r by n, right? R by n. And then as I said, mentally you write this as, replace r by n with x, that is 1 by 1 plus x. So this whole thing, and this time you are integrating from 1 to, sorry, r equal to 1 to 2n, which means value of k is 2. So integral 0 to 2 fx, this becomes fx, 1 by 1 plus x dx, correct? So this is log of 1 plus x from 0 to 2, which is log 3 minus log 1, and log 1 is anyway 0, so this is log 3. That's your answer, log 3. Okay, shall we proceed? Alright, then let us proceed. Alright, limit n tends to infinity, summation r equal to 1 to n, 1 by n, square root of n plus r upon n plus n minus r. So you will realize everything is already in the format that you want. By now hopefully you have memorized this, integral 0 to kn fx, no n here, it should be only k. So integral 0 to k fx dx can be written as limit n tends to infinity 1 by n summation r equal to 1 to kn f of r by n. So we need to convert this into r by n form. You see 1 by n is there, summation 1 to kn where k is equal to 1, that is also there, n tends to infinity is also there. So only the whatever is inside the square root, we need to take care of that. So what do? We will say here L is equal to limit n tends to infinity summation 1 to n 1 by n. You see we require 1 by n outside summation, here 1 by n is inside. What do? Yes, if you understand summation, you will realize that summation is over r. R is changing 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on, which means any constant, 1 by n is a constant, right? Any constant can simply come outside the summation. So without thinking too much, we can actually bring the 1 by n outside the summation. So then it becomes 1 by n summation, this is 1 to n. Now how do we write that in r by n form? So for that it needs to occur to you that I should probably divide with n, because when you divide by n you will get r by n. So you will get 1 plus r by n upon 1 minus r by n, correct? What did we do? Multiplying and dividing by n, or rather dividing by n both numerators and denominators. Numerator and denominator by n. Once you do that, now again mentally this becomes root of 1 plus x upon 1 minus x. Just do that. So this is integral 0 to 1, right? Integral 0 to 1 root of 1 plus x upon 1 minus x dx. One plus x upon 1 minus x dx. Right? Now, in order to do this integral, if you try to directly do it, you will find that there is no straightforward way of integrating this, because it doesn't actually match any of our standard formulae. So what do? We will go with substitution. Now think, which kind of substitution will help us in here? And whatever you substitute, you should get a square root. Extremely important. So if you think about it a little bit, or if you look at your synopsis notes, you will realize x can be cos 2 theta. If you don't remember it from before, you remember it from now on, later. Whenever you have square root and 1 plus something and 1 minus something, you go with that something as cos 2 theta. Okay. So we will say here, let x is equal to cos of 2 theta, right? Which means 1 plus x would be 2, or rather 1 plus x upon 1 minus x would be 1 plus cos 2 theta is 2 cos square theta, and 1 minus x is 2 sin square theta, right? 2 will get cancelled. When you take square root, you will get only cot theta. Make it as 1. From 1, I would be equal to integral. Now, when x is 0, what is theta? Let us do this step by step. We have now changed the integrand. Let us change the limits also. And at x equal to 0, theta is, we want 0 here, which means, sorry, we want 0 here. So 2 theta must be pi by 2, therefore theta is pi by 4. And at x equal to 1, I want cos as 1, therefore theta is 0, right? And apart from all this, we need dx also. So dx would be minus 2 sin 2 theta. Put everything there. Which means I is equal to integral, the lower limit was pi by 4, you go and check. At x equal to 0, the lower limit was pi by 4, upper limit is 0. 0, that does square root, it becomes cot theta, right? Okay, and to be honest, when you put square root, it becomes mod cot theta. So I suppose better to be careful here. Put root cot square theta, correct? Fine. Into, what is d theta? Minus 2 sin 2 theta d theta. Okay, so we have now managed to change it. Now, whenever you take square root, just recall that root of cot square theta would be mod cot theta, right? Don't just cancel root and square. We have discussed this before, but if you don't remember, don't just directly cancel it. Always put a mod, because we want a compulsory positive answer, non-negative. It can be 0, so non-negative answer. Then we will say that this is equal to mod cot theta, which is actually equal to cot theta, because theta belongs to 0 to pi by 4, which is first quadrant. In first quadrant, all ratios are positive. So because of that, we will say this is equal to integral pi by 4 to 0, simply cot theta into minus 2 sin 2 theta d theta, right? Now if I bring the minus 2 outside, isn't it better to just flip the integrals and put another minus outside? So this is minus 2 into minus of integral 0 to pi by 4 cot theta into sin 2 theta d theta. Okay, why the extra minus? Because we have flipped the integrals, flipped the limits. So minus minus cancel. This is 2 integral 0 to pi by 4. Let us go to half angle, or rather apply double angle formula. So this becomes cos theta upon sin theta into This is 2 sin theta cos theta d theta, right? Sin theta will get cancelled, sin theta gets cancelled. This is 2 integral 0 to pi by 4 2 cos square theta d theta. Now, is there a direct way to integrate cos square theta? There is no direct formula. We will have to convert this into double angle, right? What is 2 cos square theta? 1 plus cos 2 theta. Okay. So, this is equal to integral 0 to pi by 4 2 cos square theta is 1 plus cos 2 theta d theta, right? So, integral 0 to pi by 4 or since you are comfortable with integration, you just directly integrate this. So, this integral d theta is theta, or rather integral 1 is theta. Integral cos 2 theta should be sin 2 theta upon 2, right? And I think we forgot that there is a 2 outside. There is a 2 outside, so put it 2 times here and 0 to pi by 4. So, 2 into substitute pi by 4 plus sin pi by 2 upon 2, which is half, minus substitute 0 and 0, right. So, ignore this, this becomes pi by 2 plus 1. Now, there are no options, so they are expecting a numerical answer. Now, you know pi by 2 is approximately 1.57, 1.57 plus 1, which is 2.57. That is obviously an approximate value because pi is an irrational number, you can't write it in 2 decimals, but yes, approximately 2.57. All right, 2.57. Okay, let us proceed then. Limit n tends to infinity 1 raised to m, 2 raised to m, 3 raised to m up to n raised to m upon n raised to m plus 1. Again, questions like this, always better to write the summation first, right. So, given limit comma L equal to limit n tends to infinity summation. Now, can we write the sum as r raised to m, where r goes from 1 to n, right, summation r goes from 1 to n, the whole upon n raised to m plus 1. Now, but we want 1 by n outside and r by n inside. So, split this, take one n outside and take one n inside. So, it becomes limit n tends to infinity 1 by n summation 1 to n r raised to m upon n raised to m. I have just split n into m and 1. But this then can be written as one to n r by n raised to m. Now, do you see this fits exactly the kind of format we want? So, mentally this is x raised to m. So, therefore, this is integral 0 to 1, everything else is same. F of x is this, x raised to m dx. Why are we going with 1 here? Because k value is 1, right. So, that you know, x raised to m plus 1 upon m plus 1 from 0 to 1, substitute 0 will give you 0, 1 will give you 1 by m plus 1. One by m plus 1. Yeah, got it? Okay, let us proceed then. Alright, Sn is 1 by 1 plus root n, 1 by 2 plus root 2n and so on up to 1 by n plus root n square. Then limit n tends to infinity, Sn is what? Alright. Start with given L limit, right, is equal to or rather they are asking for limit n tends to Sn. So, we know that first write Sn in summation form. So denominator 1, 2, 3 up to n we can put r here, and in the square root also 1, 2, 3. So put r there also. This is summation 1 by r plus root rn, where r goes from 1 to n. Write this and check whether it's matching. 1 plus root n, 2 plus root 2n, 3 plus root 2n. Yes, it is matching. And then always check the last term also. N plus root n square, it's matching. Which means limit n tends to infinity Sn, which is what they've asked, would be limit n tends to infinity summation r goes from 1 to n 1 by r plus root rn, and then we want 1 by n outside. So take it outside, which is limit n tends to infinity 1 by n summation r equal to 1 to n. I will divide the denominator by n, r plus root rn divided by n. Where did this come from? Because I'm multiplying with 1 by n, so dividing with 1 by n. Think about it like that. Why are we doing this? Because also I want to convert everything into r by n format. So this is limit n tends to infinity 1 by n summation 1 to n 1 by, write this as r by n and root r by n. Can we do that? R by n and root r by n. We can do that because root n will get cancelled after you split, and that, like I said, that now falls exactly in our format. So this I can write it as 1 by x plus root x, just mentally. So this becomes integral 0 to value of k is 1 fx, this is your fx, 1 by x plus root x dx. Correct? This is actually pretty easy to integrate. You can split between root x and 1 plus root x, or because root x anyway is a bit irritating to deal with, you take with let root x equal to t, which means x is equal to t square and dx is 2t dt, right? Dx is 2t dt. What about the limits? 0 and 1, and x equal to t square implies at x equal to 0 t is equal to 0, at x equal to 1 t is equal to 1. Correct? Keep in mind that deliberately we will not take t equal to minus 1 because we have taken t itself as root x, which means t must be positive. So keeping all this in mind, that integral then becomes, implies I is equal to integral t, this time t is equal to 0 to t equal to 1. What is dx? Dx, as we saw, dx is 2t dt. So 2t dt upon x is t square, root x is t. Now that is nice because 1t will get cancelled. 2 integral 0 to 1 dt by cancelling 1t, only t plus 1 will remain. And that integral this is 2 log t plus 1 from 0 to 1, which is 2 times log 2 minus log 1, and log 1 is 0, right? So 2 log 2 should be your answer. Now once again there are no options, so we have to go numerically. This is actually log 4, which will be approximately 1.38 something. If answers are given, then you go with right. If answers are given, you will go with whichever value is slightly more than 1, because we know e, the base e itself is 2.7 something, so slightly more than that. All right, if the options are given. Okay. Limit n tends to infinity, n factor raised to 1 by n upon n. Now, realize that there is no summation here, and if there is no summation, obviously we cannot use our summation converted to integral. which means you have to create a summation. Now, how do we create a summation? Then second observation, n factorial is n into n minus 1 into n minus 2 up to 1, correct? So, this is actually a product of a lot of terms. So, if I want to convert a product into sum, what should I do? Log. Yes, I hope you understand. The way to convert a product into a sum is to take log. So, we will start with let L is equal to limit n tends to infinity n factorial raised to 1 by n upon n. Then even after you take log, just think about something. This 1 by n will come outside, but what do you do with this 1 by n? This also needs to go somewhere, no? So, what we will do is we will take this n inside the bracket itself. So, when it goes to inside the bracket, what do we have? We get limit n tends to infinity, it is 1 by n, no? So, when it goes inside the bracket, it will become n raised to n factorial upon n raised to 1 by n. Now, if this is not clear, better to try just expand it, see what it looks like as a product. So, limit n tends to infinity, I will write this as 1 into 2 into 3 into 4 all the way up to n upon n into n into n times raised to 1 by n. Now, you have to realize that when I take log, each of these brackets, each of this 1 by n, 2 by n, 3 by n will make separate terms. So, we will say from this taking log, log L will be, let us take it one step at a time. So, limit n tends to infinity of log 1 by n into, can you see this is a power, so this power will come outside. So, 1 by n into log of 1 by n plus log 2 by n plus up to log n by n, correct? What I have taken, when you take log, the power will come outside and every product will then become a sum, which now we will write it as summation. We will say, which means log L is equal to limit n tends to infinity 1 by n summation log 1 by n, 2 by n, 3 by n, they can all be written as r by n. R goes from 1 to n, correct? Then you should realize that now everything fits into the format that you want. Mentally, write this as log x, replace r by n with x. So, this becomes integral 0 to k is 1, so 0 to 1, fx, this is fx, log x dx, correct? And I hope you recall from indefinite integrals, integral log x. If you do not recall, then just substitute x equal to e raised to t and you can do it, okay? So, this becomes x log x minus x, okay? I am directly using this result from indefinite, you try it on your own. You can either apply UV rule, in which u is log x, v is 1, the constant 1, you can try that, or you would substitute x equal to e raised to t and then you will get the same result, okay? So, this now substitute, this becomes 1 log 1 minus 1 minus 0 log 0 minus 0, okay. Now, this right now what I have written, this is mathematically incorrect, although we have followed all the rules. Why is it incorrect? Because observe this expression, log 0 is actually minus infinity. To be honest, like log 0 is undefined, it does not fall into the definition of log. So, which is why what we are going to do is, instead of writing it like this, we will say this is equal to 1 log 1. So, deliberately I will say, do not write it like this. Deliberately I had to show you that, and now I am writing it the correct way. 1 log 1 minus 1 minus limit t tends to 0 t log t, and then the last term we know there is no problem, so we will just plus 0. Just this one term I have substituted it like this, okay, because we know 0 into infinity is, it is not undefined, it is indeterminate, which is why we should write it in limit form. Alright, hold on to this, keep this as it is. Let us first figure out the rest of the stuff. So you will realize that 1 log 1 is 0, you can ignore this, that is also 0, so we are only left with this. Which is equal to minus 1 minus limit t tends to 0 t log t, okay. Now that is your answer almost. Just go back a step. Where did all of this come from? Taking log, this whole thing is log L. So again, let us not forget, which means log L is equal to all of this. Log L is equal to all of this, right? So now consider just this limit. Consider let us say some p is equal to limit t tends to 0 t log t. Now we need to figure out what is this, the actual value, because it is indeterminate. So make this as, limit t tends to 0 I think you would have done this limit while doing the chapter of limits. I have just taken the t down. Now this becomes infinity upon infinity form. Actually minus infinity upon infinity, but that is not a problem. So I will now apply L'Hopital's rule. L'Hopital's, right? Applying L'Hopital's, some people also read it as L'Hospitals, which is fine. He was a French person, so it is L'Hopital. Okay. So anyway, this is differentiate, right? So this is equal to limit t tends to 0. When you differentiate, we get 1 by t upon minus 1 by t square, and that minus 1 by t square will go up. Limit t tends to 0 minus t square upon t, which is 0, because 1 t will get cancelled, you will get 0. So why did we do all this? To be mathematically correct. So this term, then this whole term becomes actually equal to 0. This is actually equal to 0 from this. So now substituting in 1, from 1 log L is minus 1 minus 0. Minus 0, which is minus 1, and whenever log L is minus 1, what should be L? Which means L is e raised to minus 1, which is 1 by e. Right? So just be a little bit careful about this stuff. Next time you encounter in an objective paper, if you encounter this, you can actually just put it like 0. Okay? But just to be clear, there is an entire thing happening behind the scenes to put this as 0. Alright? Okay. So log L is minus 1, therefore the answer to that then becomes 1 by e. Alright. So that was the last question. Thank you.